Narinder Singh, a neighbour of Damon Calanca. He was also interviewed at length in relation to his knowledge of the movements of Damon Calanca on the night of the disappearance of Gabriel Meyer. Narinder Singh told us that at about 7 p.m. that night he saw Damon Calanca in the rear car park of the units, and in the back of the utility at that time was a roll of carpet. Shortly after that, he looks out of his flat and sees Damon Calanca standing outside his flat, looking very breathless.
Can I get a lift to the pub later?
He called out to him and asked him for a lift up to a local hotel. About 15 minutes later, which would then have been about 7:30, Damon Calanca returned and drove into the local hotel. Calanca then drove Singh back to the units, which would then have been approximately 8 p.m, and he advised him at that time that he was off the Tully.
Thank you very much.
So this, in fact, corroborated the version supplied to us by Damon Calanca.
Cheers, mate.
We also had a witness that came forward that stated that he had seen Gabe walking towards the river, walking past a nearby shop. This was after we had confirmed that Gabe had left the flat and was several blocks away from the flat.
Apart from the discrepancy in the kilometres made in the ute, it appeared Damon Calanca's story was checking out. Then, the discovery of Gabe's bag on the banks of the Johnson River added to the confusion.
This bag was found by SES volunteers on the banks of the Johnson River and has been identified as Gabe's. Police are now relying on it as a crucial piece of evidence in their efforts to find the missing 17-year-old.
Even though we were as certain as we could be that Gabe wouldn't have willingly gone and swam in the river, sometimes you sort of second guess yourself and say, you know, did he do something really stupid?
The facts surrounding the location of the knapsack was published, and as a result of this, 2 young witnesses came forward who stated that they had seen items of clothing on the pontoon around about 7:30 p.m. on the day Gabe went missing. We also had some witnesses come forward who stated they had seen other youths throwing some of these items into the river.
There's certainly the possibility that someone had placed those items there in an attempt to throw us off, or it certainly could have been the case that they'd been placed there by Gabriel prior to going swimming.
After a brief meeting this morning with local investigators, police divers set up for a long day in the muddy waters of the Johnston River near Campbell Street.
We were glad that the police divers were coming, and while we didn't want to admit that what they might find, we just wanted Gabe back at that point. And we were really hopeful that they would find him or find, you know, something to let us know what had happened.
After using explosive charges to clear any crocodiles from the vicinity, the divers entered the murky water.
The visibility was totally nil, so they had to conduct grid searches just by touch alone. And the first lucky break of this investigation was within 2 minutes of the search patterns commencing.
After about half an hour, 2 of the divers surfaced and handed a wristwatch to the observer. It's believed the watch is the same as Gabriel's, and later, after police showed it to the teenager's parents, they said they were too upset for an interview.
When they called us and said that they had found a watch, I think we had to go identify it, and it was the most horrible. I think at that point it confirmed to us that Gabe was dead. Whatever way it was, we knew he was gone.
The watch proved to me beyond any doubt that there was foul play involved, because the watch was a diver's watch and it had a double clip on it that it just couldn't accidentally fall off. It would have to have been removed. That watch was found within throwing distance of the jetty, and it was obvious to me that someone had thrown that out there for us to find.
Detective Kruger asked me if I would contact Calanca and try to find out if he would tell me anything, because at this stage we were trying to find out where Gabe was. I called him and I said to him that I wasn't coming home until I found out what had happened to Gabe.
I thought that by doing that, we may force Calanca's hand in going and moving the body from wherever he had it, so somewhere that we would find it. The call was made, and unfortunately Calanca didn't make any move except to spot the surveillance, and it was all over.
Then a young man by the name of James Potter contacted the police with information. Just over 2 weeks before Gabe disappeared, he'd gone to a thickened area of rainforest with Damon Calanca.
He told us Calanca showed him a cleared area of palm trees in the rainforest, and Calanca had marked this area with a cross with some sticks on the ground.
Calanca told Potter that the cross was to identify the spot when he next came out camping.
Later that day, we travelled to Polly Creek, and Potter showed us an area where he'd been with Damon Calanca, and there was what appeared to be a newly dug grave under some palm leaves in the rainforest.
When you first see the hole, it's nothing else but a grave. The shape of it, the depth of it, and there was no doubt in my mind that was to be someone's grave.
Police decided it was time to bring Damon Calanca in for another interview. They hoped the revelations of the grave-like hole at Polly Creek would trigger a confession.
You know you own pocket James? Yes, I do. When was the last time you took him to Polly Creek?
About 3 or 4 weeks ago. Something like that, maybe.
Well, have you been back there since the time you were under the Potter?
No, not at all, no.
Did you mark a spot up there at all?
I put a thing there so I remember where to go there again, because I put 2 pieces of wood, but that was about it.
At this point of the interview, Damon Calanca asked for an adjournment.
The mention of Polly Creek, he basically froze, insisted on having a solicitor. That was obtained.
The interview then recommenced, and Calanca told police why he dug the hole.
I supposedly trying to go somewhere else for myself, to start my own use, not my use, but to get some money together. I planted that off there 6 foot long, 7 foot long, I don't know, about 2 feet deep.
So what you're saying is that you dug that hole for the purpose of what's going to grow plants in the future?
We didn't believe that because the area, firstly, wasn't very ideal for growing marijuana. It was so thick. And secondly, there was never any suggestion, even on Calanca's own admission, he wasn't a user of marijuana and had never been involved in the marijuana business.
Did you go up to Polly Creek and use that?
No, I didn't go up. I was going to go up in the morning, on Wednesday morning. But when Gabe's father turned up, I just said, no, I think we're the youth. That way I don't have house for 2 weeks. But like I said to him, the reason I'm doing this is because I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to put any smoke screens up and say, oh, I'm doing this and that. Because you only get yourself caught in trouble if you keep trying to tell stories.
What do you say to the rumour that you killed the young Gabe in endeavour to get Fawn to come back to Australia?
Like I said to Fawn, she rang me on Monday. We were talking about it, and I said, look, if you thought that I did this just to get you back, you would go back anyway. So there's no choice. I can't see the thinking behind that because I love the family a lot. I've got no intention of hurting anybody, and I would never do something like that.
It was like a challenge to him. He seemed to be enjoying talking to us. Well, he knew what we had basically and what we didn't have, and I got the distinct feeling that he was enjoying every minute of it.
I'll be honest with you, I think he has gone. I think he has taken off.
Well, why do you think that?
No, just that some of the things that he says and does, he is very adventurous, and if he wants to do something, he'll do it. But he's probably sitting somewhere now, probably just having the best time of his life. That's what he probably wants to do. But I'm angry with him for the fact that I'm going through all this.
Yeah.
But if he came back, I'd probably still try to be nice to him. I just don't want to get blamed for something, like they put something on me and I go to jail, and then in 10 years' time he turns up there with his wife, you know. That's what was really upset me.
We certainly were getting a feel that something was seriously wrong with the mental processes of Calanca.